Welcome. You are very, very well researched.
A little bit of Google stalking?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's an enormous pleasure for me to be here this morning. I started out as a very boring lawyer, a nasty insolvency litigator, in fact, and then I kind of had this dream about getting out of the industry and what would inspire me. I interrogated all of my friends, anyone who would listen to me, people I met on the street, and advertising matched up with my dream of what my next career move should be. So advertising kind of saved me from that world of folders and folders and hours of due diligence. In fact, it was Sasha Firth, who's now at Iris, who took a leap of faith on a young green lawyer who had dreams of the advertising industry. And Catherine Cooper at the Campaign Palace, who's not here today, but Gareth's here today, who was a really important mentor to me. So it's really nice to still be a part of this community. So yeah, advertising is a great place to be. Maybe this is your slide. Thanks to Campaign Monitor. I use Campaign Monitor actually, so yay Campaign Monitor. And over to me. Okay, so these are a couple of Twitter handles you can catch me on after the sort of session today. I'll put my email address at the end as well if you want to stay in contact. I think that it's really important that we do really foster these communities. Sydney's got a really generous environment for fostering great ideas. So if you've got an idea, if you've got something you want to connect out about, please don't hesitate to reach out. I do answer all my emails, now with a bit of help from my EA Dave, but I will get back to you. So the agenda for today, wanted to take you through a little bit about what is Shoes of Prey, and I also have a second business called Sneaking Duck. I'll take you through the highlights so far. Some of them Maria's already covered, which is great, and talk to you about the purple cow, a concept you might have come across before, but just talk to you about how we use that every day in our business. And then one of the focuses that I've been asked to have a look at today that I'll share with you is about the creative consumer. The fact that you're the designer, about the emotional connection and the real importance of that emotional connection. And we'll dive a little bit into something that I personally believe in a lot, which is, brands as people rather than brands as brands talking to consumers. We'll talk about mass customization versus mass production, the user interface, and about getting it out there and sharing it, and one of our most successful campaigns that we've run to date with a really low media budget, which is music to any client's ears. So without further ado, this is Shoes of Prey. This is our website at the moment. We've gone through a lot of reskins, one of them that we did in under a week, including photography for the grand budget of $5,000. So as advertising people, I know you understand why that was an amazing achievement. We were the first people to do design your own shoes for women online. Globally, back in October 2009. Nike ID had existed before that, but that was just changing colours and materials on a shoe, but we offer the opportunity for you to change the heel height, the heel shape. You can choose from hundreds of different materials and create exactly what you want. Since then, we're a team of 24 people in Sydney. We have 6 offices globally, and we cracked multi-million-dollar revenue in under 2 years. As Marie said, we took $3 million in funding on just in June this year, and the syndicate of investors that we have in that were really extraordinary brains to come onto our business. They include Mike Arrington, who's the founder of TechCrunch and colloquially known as God of the Internet. Honestly, when I saw that, I was clicking my heels. This is so exciting. And also Mike Cannon-Brooks, one of our foremost leaders in tech entrepreneurialism in Australia. They're one of the founders of Atlassian, to name but a few of those people in that syndicate. My other project as well, my second company, is Sneaking Duck, and we had both ideas at the same time, and it was really that question of focus, like, oh my god, which one do we go with first? We pursued Shoes of Prey and then brought Sneaking Duck onto the scene in October last year. The premise of Sneaking Duck is that you can now access a really well curated range of frames that you're not going to see on the high street for a price that means that you can have many pairs and have fun matching your frames to your outfits. But I'm going to focus really on Shoes of Prey because that's been the majority of my journey and really where I can share the lessons and stories that I've had over that time. With Sneaking Duck, it's actually doing sort of 3 to 4 times better than Shoes of Prey was doing at this point in its life. So I think it's safe to say that those lessons have been implemented. Okay, so this is the kind of heartbeat of our website. It's our designer page. And it's kind of, so we do all of our technology in-house. This is a 3D designer. You can rotate the shoe. The most interesting thing about, well, there's 2 really interesting things to highlight about that, and I guess it's just they relate to idea generation. So the first thing is that the founding members of Shoes of Prey, none of us are cobblers. Did we have any knowledge about shoes going into this? No way, baby. Like, I knew what I liked in shoes, but I didn't know how to make a shoe. And honestly, if we'd had that expertise, I don't think we would have come up with this idea and tried to execute it. We had suppliers would say to us, sure, we'll sell you some shoes. We'll make some shoes for you, whatever. But we'll see you guys, we won't see you around in 6 months. You're not going to survive. And I think the real lesson that I want to share with you out of that is don't let your expertise get in the way of a really good idea. I think as adults, we lose that sense of play, and particularly in a creative industry like advertising, we kind of tend to do this self-editing thing. We put things down, we don't put them on the board, they might sound stupid, maybe they don't match up exactly with what is possible. But really, just don't let that expertise get in the way of putting out a good idea or sparking someone else into a good idea as well. The second thing about it is, and I'll talk a bit more about the UI later, but there's no set part of the process. You don't have to choose your heel first and get locked down and then choose the upper and then get locked down into that. We wanted to keep this creative process as open and fluid as possible so you can tweak, go back. And I know for some women that's really painful because they spend hours on the website before making the purchase, but I also think that that's quite important to the creative process as well. I'm also just going to premise, actually, I should have said this a little bit earlier, 2 things. All of these are my stories and experiences, so please take them on board that way, and certainly open to discussion about the experiences later on, and keen to hear about yours as well. They might be slightly different, but this has simply been my experience. The second thing is, if you've got any questions, you can't break my flow, so feel free to jump in with the questions at any point during the presentation. I will stop for questions at the end as well, though. Okay, so this is a snippet of the 4 trillion possible shoes that you can design on Shoes of Prey. And I guess it's, women really like our idea. So I calculated this back at the beginning of the year, actually, so it would be more now. Women have spent more than 20 million minutes designing shoes on the Shoes of Prey website, which is about 45 years, no sleep. And look, it's a really long time to spend designing shoes. But, what is it that makes us so covered, so interesting? I mean, in the past 3 years, we've been covered by a huge number of exciting press outlets. Oprah wrote about us. We have Carly Rae Jepsen wore our shoes on Conan last week. We're doing 3 shows at New York Fashion Week that are happening right now. Wall Street Journal's written about us, Forbes, the Google blog. It's just been this extraordinary journey. And, we've also got, this is just a small snippet of our happy customers who, on your wedding day, when you're not going to compromise on exactly what you want to put on your feet, you just design the dress, you want the perfect shoes as well. Or maybe you just bought this great skirt from Alana Hill and you can imagine the shoes that you want. Look, our mission, and I think like our purple cow, is that thanks to Shoes of Prey, women can have the perfect shoe. And I think that that's the problem that we're solving for women all around the world. Now, this idea of the purple cow, has everyone heard about this? Should I go into it? Nods. Anyone shaking their head? Yeah, okay, right, there's a few shaking heads. So I'll do this quickly for the people nodding. So basically, it's this theory by Seth Godin, and the idea is that if you're driving down a road and you drive past a paddock and there's a white cow, brown cow, black cow in the field, you're going to keep going. You might even speed up because you're getting a bit bored and you want to get to your destination. But if you went past that same field and there was a purple cow hanging out in the field, you'd pull that car over as quickly as possible. You'd wake up John in the seat next to you and go, oh my God, there's a purple cow. Pull out your smartphone, tweet it, Facebook it, Instagram it, Pinterest it, start a Pinterest board, start hashtag, whatever it is you're going to do. But basically you would share it. And it's looking for that one extraordinary thing in everything that you do. What is your purple cow? for Shoes of Prey, it is that we believe that every woman should have the perfect shoes. We also so that's at the essence of our brand, but then when we pull that down into other things, we take it into our customer service. My customer service girls will do anything to make sure that you get to the perfect shoe for you. Honestly, like, we have had there's been occasions where women have been going into their dress fitting and they miss the timing with ordering their shoes and they're getting their hem done, and our girls have turned up to the dress fitting surprise with a bunch of flowers and their perfect shoes. We've had so many experiences that are akin to that. We take it through to our packaging. I'm sorry to spoil it if you haven't ordered shoes from us, but when you open up our packaging, it's extraordinary. We handwrite you a letter. We wax seal the envelope with our own little bare hands. We fold it up into beautiful tissue paper and dust bags and things like that as well. So it's really looking for what that extraordinary thing is about what you're doing. And I guess the other key part of that is authenticity, which we'll go into a little bit later in the presentation. So this, I thought I'd just quickly introduce you to the founding team. This is what we look like on a really good day, with lots of airbrushing and great lighting and planned outfits. Guy standing, that's Michael Fox, and he is our CEO, and his background is in two things. Firstly, we all met in law school, but he went on a very brief stint in law, and then went on to Supercheap Auto, and he was taken across. He was the only graduate to be hired in and taken across the entire operations, so he understands operations of a business extremely well. He then went on to Google and worked in the head of the agency team in ad sales, so really fabulous understanding of our online marketing. Mike Knapp, who's sitting down, is our Director of Technology and co-founder as well. And Mike was a software engineer at Google, and he worked on pretty extraordinary projects. He was one of the engineers behind Google Reader, and he worked out of Shanghai, Mountain View and Sydney offices. So that's why we can do all this great technology in-house. And then me, I started out, as I said before, as a nasty insolvency litigator. I then moved into securitization, which probably means nothing. And then I was saved by advertising. And this photo is actually taken at the Campaign Palace, for rest in peace, for those of you who might have popped in there from time to time. Where we actually sublet to have our first Shoes of Prey digs, and it was pretty awesome to have people walk in the door and say, "Oh, welcome to the Shoes of Prey office," and there was this great view in the background like we'd already made it, so that's pretty exciting. So a little bit less glamorous, this is my lounge room, and we actually had a bit of a lapse in lease between moving from the Campaign Palace into our new office, and this is what startup land really looks and feels like. I have a one-bedroom apartment, and we had 9 people in the heat of summer. I don't know if you guys remember summer 2 years ago. It was like, there were 40-degree days, and I was sitting there beating sweat off me, like in the courtyard, trying to madly make this operation work with 9 people in my apartment, and it nearly drove me crazy. So that's what startup really looks like, and this is our new office, where we can do pirouettes down the corridors and things like that, and hide all the shoes away out of my house. We're now a staff of 24 people, and I can't tell you how, honestly, one of the best parts of my day is pushing the door open to my office at any given time and hearing a buzz and listening to people in their own extraordinary way executing ideas that I've been thinking about for years and years and years, but never had the time to prioritize. It's just the most extraordinary feeling in the world. Okay, so art director's in the room. I'm so sorry about this slide. I looked at it again this morning and went, that's so embarrassing. I didn't show my graphic designer. I did this myself. It's bad, I know. I guess I'm fully aware that this is a disaster, particularly. I guess what I really wanted to talk about in this slide here is the idea of the creative consumer. And I guess talking about kind of the shift that's happened in consumers over the past, let's say 10 years. So I personally think that it all started with the way that we communicate, and we've got this, technology has really pushed us into this huge shift where we need to attract customers. We're doing lots of pull rather than push advertising onto people now and engagement with people. And that idea of I can choose what I engage with is pretty exciting, and I think there's an amazing opportunity there for brands to not only just go and be brands, but brands are now invited to have a personality so that people can interact with them. And personalities are multifaceted, and that's where authenticity becomes really important in your communications and the way that you decide to present yourself in all of these different channels. So I made myself some notes from this slide because I had so much to say. Lucky you. Okay, so it's partly about that dialogue and broadcast. It's about being relevant to people, and I guess with that idea of multifaceted, and this is why, I mean, if you think about brands as personalities and as people, if you had one friend that just kept saying to you, man, you should buy this, you should totally buy this, come and buy this, have you seen this, buy it, you'd probably stop taking their phone calls. And that's why we start to see this great content coming up with awesome viral videos that people are actually interested in, that kind of have to do with the product but are actually something that I find fun and engaging. But you can only do those fun, engaging videos and extra bits and pieces if it really is authentic and true to your brand personality. So I guess that's kind of a bit of a, yes, go and do that, but go and do it only if it makes sense for the brand that you're working on. And I'll give you a practical example of that in a minute. I think as well, the reason that this creative consumer has kind of come about is partly because of financial situation as well. So we saw the global financial crisis happen. I don't think it really stopped anyone from spending here in Australia. I think what it did though is it helped us to realise that cash is finite. And all of a sudden we were like, hey, well, I want to buy exactly what I want. I don't want to just pick something up off the shelf and be satisfied with that. And then the interesting thing that kind of happened out of that was, well, if I'm picking that up off the shelf and someone over there is offering me the same product or service but with an experience, I'm probably going to go over there. And a really great example of that is Woolworths and Thomas Dux. I mean, they've started up this whole other chain, and it's such a cool idea because if I go, let's say I'm being lazy, which happens regularly, and I decide I'm going to be unhealthy and make nachos for dinner. If I pop up to Woolworths, I'll grab some Doritos and walk out the door. If I go to Thomas Dux, then I'll buy some organic corn chips with corn that's being milled somewhere exotic, and I'll pop to the counter, and Jan at the counter will say to me, oh, what are you doing tonight? Looks like you're having a bit of a casual night in. Yeah, I'm making nachos. Oh, well, here's a great tip for how to keep the nachos crisp when you make it instead of getting soggy with the salsa. Oh, thanks, Jan, that's awesome. And did you need some avocado? This one's a ripe one, you should take this one instead. It's that whole experience built around me having a crappy night in with nachos. So I think that it's just thinking about that experience that's around it is a really important thing for brands today, and getting to that creative consumer. The next thing that I wanted to touch on is just this idea of mass customization, because I think that all of these factors that I've talked about in the slide before about that creative consumer really created the perfect storm for us and this trend of mass customization. So what do I mean when I use that kind of bit of jargon, mass customization? Basically the opposite of mass production. It's creating one product at a time in a scalable way. So literally, every single shoe that we make is handmade from scratch, one at a time, for you when you give us your design. And you're right, when we turned up and said, hey guys, why don't we do this? Instead of you making us lots of shoes at once, we just give you one at a time. Can you imagine that conversation? It took a lot of romancing. But yeah, so I guess just touching on that, I mean, we're seeing this grow exponentially at the moment. You can now design your own chocolate, design your own granola, design your own shirt, design your own suit, design your own bra. You can do what, really it's all out there in design your own. I designed my own laptop case. So, it's really coming into its own at the moment. We're starting to see more traditional retailers start to dip into this mass customization idea. I also, just going back to the user interface a little bit, I think I've actually already given everything away that I wanted to talk to you about in this slide. So basically, look, there's lots of different ways that you can do it. There are a lot of brands out there that are using their user interface in a way that they force people to choose something and then move on in the process, and then choose the next element and move on in the process. I personally don't think that's the best way to give the experience of designing something on your own, because, I mean, I don't know how you guys go about this kind of thing, but I really hate having to track back through and remake all of my decisions. I hate not being able to think about things really fluidly. So that was a really important thing for us with Shoes of Prey. We worked on making a 3D experience as well, because ultimately we're asking someone to trust us to say, I'm going to buy something without having ever seen it before. So trying to make this as realistic as possible, and we're leading the game in terms of user interface for mass customization globally at the moment. So there are a couple of the factors that have been really important in looking at this kind of interface and making it really work intuitively for our customers as well. That's kind of at the heart of it as well, being really intuitive with what you're creating. And on that point of creativity, that I'll just link back to the discussion I had earlier about self-editing and things like that. Another thing that I'd really encourage you to do is to, and this is how we came up with this designer, which killed my IT team, was imagine what the most amazing solution would be. Imagine exactly what you would want it to be and then figure out how to get there. Because we're at a point in time with technology and talent in Sydney where you can really imagine whatever it is that you want and then find your way about how to solve that problem as well. It's not about being restrained by parameters anymore. So I'd really encourage you to change your thinking on that as well if you haven't already. Okay, so now to campaigns, boiling this all down into something that really delivers. You may have heard this story before, so if you have, I do apologise, but I think it's the one that's the most demonstrative of taking a risk and learning about how this kind of thing can operate. So I don't know if you guys have heard of Blair Fowler, aka Juicy Star 07. She at the time was a 16-year-old makeup video blogger, hanging out in her bedroom telling people how to put makeup on. I'm not going to play the video because I actually find her voice really irritating, but she is an amazing businesswoman. So we saw Blair and we were like, hey, this is kind of amazing. This girl has just south of 500,000 subscribers, so a funnel that's really big. Her videos that she posts 3 times a week always get more than 500,000 views, so an engaged funnel of people. The kind of people who are watching it, female, and all interested in fashion and beauty. She just started doing fashion videos as well. So it's a really well qualified audience for us to engage with. We also saw that there was lots of dialogue as well. The great thing about using a YouTube video is that it's very much one-to-one, and it's great to find a video blogger who really understands that. It's almost like you sitting down with someone in their room and having a chat with them about your product. So it fits really well with that development of brand personality. It was a really good fit for us. So highly engaged audience. We emailed Blair and said, hey Blair, so we've got this cool company where you can design your own shoes. What do you think about doing a video with us? And her agent wrote back and said, you know, this is kind of the structure of how we do it and commercials and all that sort of stuff. What do you think? And overall, like, send us a pair of shoes and then she'll decide if she likes them. If she likes them, then she'll do the review. So we sent shoes, she liked them, and she did this 10-minute or 9-minute 42 tutorial where she explained how to design a pair of shoes on Shoes of Prey. She was clearly excited about the idea in the video, and then at the end it was a competition. So design a pair of shoes, put the link to the design in the comments below and say where you would wear them. We'll pick the best design and we'll make those shoes for you. So let's have a think about the maths here. 500,000 people watch the video, but then they have to go off-site, enter the competition, come back with the link, post it, and we all know that competitions don't often yield that much engagement. So my thought was, look, 5,000 people, I'd call that a win in entrance. So just keep that in mind. Also too, if you have a look at the graph along the bottom of the slide there, so between October 2009 and March 2010, when we ran this campaign, we had 200,000 people to the website. Unique visits. It's pretty impressive. Like, for a starter, you know, we've been covered by Marie Claire. Not too bad. That spike that you see there is the day the video went live, when we had 200,000 people visit in one day. So side note there is, make sure that if you're running a campaign like this, that your client has all their servers ready to go so they don't crash. We didn't crash. That's the benefit of having a technology person as a founder, but that's a really good note to write down. Your clients will love you. So yeah, 200,000. She delivered 200,000 people in one day. That day, we were worldwide the most commented video on YouTube. We are still the 3rd most commented video on YouTube in the how to and style category. It sent millions of people to our website. It was amazing. Remember how I said 5,000 people we thought would enter? 90,000 people entered our competition. That's 90,000 people who came and engaged with us, who played with the product, who understood it, who told their friends about it. You should have seen our Twitter account. It was absolutely insane. So what went wrong? Or the lesson that we learnt and followed quickly. So thank God for us, we're a bunch of nerds, and so we like to watch data and analytics in real time. And what we noticed is that all these girls were coming to the site, and we were like, oh my God, we don't have share buttons. This is like March 2010. Who knows about share buttons? Oh my God. So we implemented on the spot, Facebook, Twitter, email to a friend and all that sort of stuff, and that went crazy. So luckily we caught that very early on. And as we're watching our traffic absolutely soar, we were watching our sales stay like this. And we were like, oh my God, what's this about? And we realized that Blair's audience of 13 to 17-year-old girls didn't actually have $250 in their pocket. Whoops. So what could we possibly do with this traffic? Because now we had the traffic, we were capturing it. What do we do next to deliver that into sales? And guys, hey, that's what your clients really care about, right? What the bottom line is going to look like at the end of the day. So we went into sales mode and we thought, right, we need to get this to the big sisters, to the mums, to the professional women. So we started pushing our communications with those girls who are on our site to, tell mum, tell your sisters, all that sort of stuff. And then we had this huge debate between the three founders about whether we would actually write up a case study about what we've done, because this is newsworthy, right? But on the other hand, who wants to tell your competitors that we just did this awesome thing and it cost us barely any money and it's like hugely viral and it's amazing. Anyway, in the end, we have this business blog, 22 Michaels, and we genuinely do tell all of our secrets there. There's very little that doesn't go onto that blog. We wrote a post on there and put it out there, and it got retweeted by this very famous tech guy in New York. And then before we woke up the next morning, we had an email in our inbox from the Wall Street Journal saying, this is a great story, I want to write it up. He wrote it up, and then all of a sudden, all the professional women who are not hanging out on YouTube watching how-to beauty channels of 16-year-old girls putting makeup on knew about Shoes of Prey, and the ultimate result was that our sales tripled permanently. So it was an amazing campaign, and I guess the lessons that we learned out of that: big numbers, big funnel, looks good. What are you going to do with that traffic when you get it? How are you going to capture it? And then how are you going to convert that traffic? And thinking about the really obvious things, like, are they the people that you should be targeting? And really encouraging your clients as well to keep an eye on the analytics as campaigns are live as well, and giving you access to that so you can be watching it as well. There's so much to learn there. So yeah, that was pretty exciting. We've done YouTube videos 3 times since then, and they keep tripling our sales, so I'd say we'd keep doing them. I guess too, this is kind of the sentimental slide, where I just wanted to share with you a couple of quick tips, which are the things that I actually do my business by every single day, like that I really think about in the morning when I get up, and that I try and tell anyone who will ever listen to me. So you're listening to me, so you have to get these. The first thing is just make a decision and see what happens. So when you're sort of debating the merits of whether you should put something in front of a client, when you're working with a client to say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Just try and get to a decision of at least testing the crazy innovative thing that you think might just work. Also too, doing everything before you're ready. Having come from a background as a lawyer and then an account manager, this was a really foreign one to me, but especially in digital, if you do everything when you're ready, you're probably too late to market as well. So just finding ways to test things out ahead of time, finding ways to take people, your audience, on your journey with you. People love contributing their ideas and seeing them happen. So for example, someone will suggest a material and I'll source it and put it in the range and thank them for it. We recently had someone design a superhero range of shoes and post it to our Facebook page where we produced the shoes because they're so cool. Like, who wouldn't want Batman and Robin shoes? So, just doing everything before you're ready is great for helping people to kind of expose that journey. Don't be afraid of it. It's not a bad thing. And lastly, believe passionately in what you're doing. I know that doesn't always happen if you're working on like a funny client that the product or service doesn't relate to you, but believe passionately at some level in what you're doing or what you're delivering, because when those lows are really excruciating, that's what's going to get you out of bed every morning and doing great work. Thank you for having me. Stay in touch. That's my personal email address, my actual personal email address, so don't spread it around. But if you do want to get in touch, do send me an email on that and I'll get back to you. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Jodie.
Hi.
I was just interested when you were talking about the mass customization,
Yes.
how much work that took to get, because a lot of your stuff's made in China.
Yeah, it
Do
is.
you guys have to go there, like, a lot?
I'm going next week. So we have a team of technicians there and we have our own office set up there as well. The technicians are amazing. These guys have been hand making shoes for decades. They're really cool. And they help me to take my crazy ideas to fruition. So in the beginning, yeah, absolutely. We spent heaps and heaps of time over there, but now we have a really cool team set up that are able to sort of run that operational part for us. But yeah, I think FaceTime can't be underestimated, especially when you're doing something that isn't off the shelf, something that's completely, totally different that requires process changes and things like that as well. Yeah, you're welcome.
You talked of mass customization of like shirts and
Chocolate, yeah.
chocolate. Has anyone tried to replicate your business model?
Yeah, they have actually. So we have a few competitors now, and competition is a really interesting thing, especially for a startup, because to be honest, we welcomed it until one of our competitors actually hacked our site and stole our code. Yeah, and the reason I want to share this story with you is not because I'm bitter, but actually because it presented a really interesting decision for us, which was, as a small business and as the ex-lawyers and ex-litigators at that, do I go chase them and say, like, that's it, you're screwed? Or do I just actually, the smartest thing we decided in the end was to out-innovate, because we have a better team, we're leading the game, they're fast following us, which is kind of flattering anyway. But it was really hard to make that decision, because when you see that happen, just the sense of injustice, the amount of blood, sweat and tears that you've poured into it, and for someone to, purposefully, meaningfully go in and hack and pull the copy, and we had the silver bullet proof that they'd done it as well, was really, really, really hard to deal with. And I guess out of that, the message I wanted to share with you is, I'm a highly emotional person, and it's really difficult to get that really objective view sometimes, but it's a really important one to balance. And not to dismiss your emotions altogether, because emotional intelligence often will pip intellectual intelligence. It's just finding the right balance between the two when you're making good business decisions. Yeah, and then I'll go you next. Yeah.
Hi, will you talk about the opportunity of being in Australia specifically and being a digital business and how you secured VC funding?
Oh, yes. That's like 5 questions. Okay, so the good thing about being in Australia is that we're kind of in an environment right now where tech and entrepreneurialism is getting great support. We're starting to see changes in the way that grants are structured as well. So, and particularly there's been a lot of state grants change around so that you can get access to funding for your business. More of the federal stuff has a little bit of a way to go, and we've got some archaic legislation to fight before that all gets underway. But we have a really good kind of attitude towards tech and small business and entrepreneurialism in Australia at the moment that I think is really exciting. We're also starting to see lots of organic movements happening where we're starting to put together good networks of people who can force those differences. So, I mean, whether it's Clover Moores or Fishburners, little space for offices at the end of Oxford Street there where you can, rent a desk for maybe $75 a week or whatever it is. And then you kind of get that natural environment of a bunch of entrepreneurs there who are bouncing ideas and helping each other out. That's really cool. So that's kind of they're kind of a couple of the more organic benefits of being in Australia right now, or structural and organic. What was the next part? There was a bit about funding at the end, but the benefit of being in Australia. Another great thing is too, we have amazing talent here. We just need to find a place for them to go in Australia so that we don't lose them to like the Googles and Microsofts offshore and stuff like that. So it's a matter of we really should be supporting those businesses so that we can keep our great talent in Australia, and also give a good reason to help to push that education a little bit more as well. There's definitely an education issue there. And in terms of getting funding, okay, funding's a hard road. I think that Marie made a really great point earlier, which is that often if you're taking funding from Europe or the US, they do want you to move so that you can be, the board can be really a part of your operations. And in one side note there is to say that when you are looking for funding, don't just look for cash, look for the right people as well who are going to be those brains on your business that can contribute and have great networks as well. I guess a lot of it is good networking. A lot of it is really good networking, turning up in the right places, making sure that you've got the right press and presence as well, and genuinely just being on your game every time that you're speaking to someone who might have those connections, and the connections will come from the craziest places. But yeah, I'm not sure that I can really give too much more in the way of tips other than saying great networking. Oh, and a good pitch document as well, making sure that you've really thought through every aspect that they're going to want to know. So making sure that your forecasts are all done for the next 5 years, and not just plucking numbers out of the air, but proving how you're going to get to those places when you'd make hires, and justify back the amount of money that you're looking for in funding as well, and then ultimately what kind of times in revenue, no less than 4, that you'll give back to them at the end of the day. So good planning as well. I hope that helps. Did it? Yeah? Okay, great. Hey.
For the mass customization of shoes, do you ever consider making bad tasting shoes?
Every single day. No, so there's a couple of things. It's I think women are like, oh well, it's my ugly duckling, and sometimes fashion is just ugly. I can't believe I just said that on the record, but so there's two things. I mean, we sometimes honestly we email customers a photo of their shoes as we're just about to ship them, and sometimes we're like, oh, well, for sure, they're going to tell us don't bother about shipping them, or these shoes, we're going to see them, they're going to be returned. But people love what they create. That emotional connection can't be underestimated. I created this. This is my thing. This goes with, this is a part of me. This is my expression. This is my experience. Is really, really, really powerful. So there's that. Secondly, it's all about styling as well. So my great hope is that our customers who design shoes that I'm not sure about are amazing stylists and know how to make those shoes, know how to rock those shoes with their cool outfit that I would never have expected. And that's actually one of the tricky things about I'm responsible for our communications but also our product development, and I always have to push myself beyond what I would wear. Otherwise all the shoes would be black. I struggle to go beyond with colour, but I am working with neon right now and I am really enjoying it. I think it's just about realising that everyone has their own kind of expression of themselves and what they think is interesting. So that's what I tell myself when I see ugly shoes.
Where do you get your inspiration for your branding? Shoes of Prey, Sneaking Duck, 22 Michaels.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It's kind of interesting. I do all the work for constructing our brands and things like that, and I think it's just, you kind of inherently, it's very organic and it's very authentic. We set out with the problem that we're going to solve, and then we kind of, I don't know, you kind of just feel it from there. Like for Shoes of Prey, the idea behind the name was, when you're walking down the street, and maybe women will relate to this more than the guys in the room, but when you're walking down the street and you see something and you kind of take this mental snapshot and then you go searching on ASOS or whatever it is and you try and find that product, like Marie's dress. I'm going to be looking for that online later. But honestly, you go on the hunt, you become a predator. And in fact, our first photo shoot, I'd set up the brief so it was kind of like lots of shots of a downward perspective and heaps of movement in the background, like you just captured those shoes in that moment in the street. So it was kind of that you're the predator of shoes, so Shoes of Prey, even though the name didn't come about quite that easily. That's kind of the thinking behind that. For Sneaking Duck, it's that idea of kind of someone, like the nerd, so like the awkward duck trying to be cool by doing something cool like being stealth. And 22 Michaels, yeah, so I guess it was, so Michael started writing the blog, and then we have obviously another Michael as a co-founder, and then I was joking about calling myself Michael, and yeah, anyway, I don't really know how that one came about. Yeah, I don't have a good explanation for you on that, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we actually wrote a blog post actually on 22 Michaels, and it's called Naming Our Baby, and I wrote up kind of my path of thinking that I use to get to brand names. And this is probably actually the answer you were looking for. And so I created sort of my own structure for deriving territories and working through those in the way that we work through those. And then I also used something called Igor, and it's a naming guide, and you can download it for free off the internet, and they have a short guide, and then they have an epic guide that you can download as well. And they were all really useful in raising points you should think through when naming something. So, yeah. Sorry for really rambling on that answer. Anyone else?